Hello, friends. How are you today? Well, today there's no data on the Schumann chart. And so what I did was I took a look at the astrology of the moment that the data stopped. And I have a really interesting interpretation of the energies for you. The data stopped at like an amazing moment. There's a yod at that moment pointing straight at the moon and at the midheaven. And it's interesting because the whole concept of the yod in astrology came about in Babylonian times. A astrology chart was done for the king of Babylon that pointed out the yod. There was a yod in the chart pointing at the midheaven. And whether it was a combination of astrologers not wanting to tell the king exactly what they saw or the king not listening, Babylon was sacked sometime shortly thereafter. And it's very intriguing. While the sextile points were different, the apex of the yod was the same as today's yod. It was at the midheaven. I used Tomsk because that's where the chart is created. So I used Tomsk for the location, and I think that's appropriate. So the yod had, right at this point where the data stopped here, the yod had both Neptune and Pluto retrograde. Those are these symbols here. This is Neptune here, and this is Pluto. And this is an incredibly intense energy. Amazingly, the moon was conjunct one star and like within minutes, just like 10, 20 minutes. And then it was conjunct another major star, a little bit wider, but very relevant, less than 2 degrees, a little over 1.5, which for that star is a relevant orb. But essentially, the midheaven was conjunct Regulus. I mean, Regulus is one of the royal stars, and we just saw at the new moon that the new moon, which included the sun, they're at the same point in the chart, that those were conjunct another royal star, Aldebaran, at the new moon. And now the moon was in Leo at 28 degrees, and that's where the midheaven was, I think, at 24 degrees. So amazing. And then Regulus was at 0. So the Regulus and the moon were very close, but the moon was conjunct the midheaven within 4 degrees. Sorry for all this data. So I think that's relevant. And then I'm going to go into the details of the other fixed star because there's some really important messages here of the energies, and I don't know if they're going to put the data back or not. Sometimes when the Schumann does not have data, sometimes hours later the data will be put back. And then other times the space stays blank. So the reason that I focus on the moon and the sun, and even something like the midheaven or the ascendant at a time like this where we're looking at a short-term stop in the data is because those are the near planets, as they're called. And that's what really affects us sort of in the near term. The longer term stories are all ongoing that I discussed in my new moon video, which you take a look at that if you haven't seen it, and my video on the big Schumann wave. All those stories are still in effect here. So here's the chart, and here's the biggest thing that I saw on the chart. I saw see this arrow here, the dash line of an arrow. It's right in here. Okay, so, and it goes from here, Neptune at 25, and Pluto at 27, and they're both retrograde, to the moon at 28, and the midheaven at 24. So the yod is actually more in alignment with the midheaven. Well, actually, no, it's not. The Neptune side is more alignment with the midheaven, and the Pluto side is more in alignment with the moon. Isn't that apt? So let me quickly just summarize the meaning of this. this is very focused emotional energy. Very, very focused. I'm going to interpret the symbols in a second based upon the Sabian symbol interpretation, which is an interpretation for each degree. Okay? But in general, you've got Neptune here in retrograde in Pisces, the strongest Neptunian energy that you could have, right? Neptune in Pisces. So what you've got here is you've got this full evolution of Neptunian energies, and it's in review. It's in retrograde. So anyone who's been mired in illusion, and you've got Saturn retrograde here. Saturn retrograde is in the shadow at 24, so it's 1 degree off of this, and then 1 degree, and then not 1 degree, 1 sign, and then 1 sign off of Pluto here. So Saturn is opposing the midheaven, and it's right on the IC. So if you know anything about the different planets, this is incredibly tense when you add Saturn to the mix. Why? Because the Yod is showing what God feels is important. Saturn is going to compress anything that's not strong enough to hold its structure. The only way to have a strong structure is to have that structure aligned with divinity through you. On the wing here at Neptune, if one is deep in illusion, the structure will not hold. If one is working on divine connection and great insights, you've got a chance to achieve what divinity wants for you. And to flip from illusion to insight, if you can bear the pressure of Saturn, because Saturn's intense here. Okay, and connecting with the divine within is the way to expand that compressing structure back out, and to give that which is being compressed that is not truly yours to God. That's a potential solution there. Now here's Pluto, and Pluto will simply get to the heart and soul of whatever is the core issue here. It will burn to dust that which is not in alignment with divinity, and it will enhance that which is of pure soul, and it will help you focus. So when operating within these energies, calling on the divine, this is a really good bet here to achieve victory, because you see these wings here are retrograde, and so is the opposition. The moon is in forward motion, and so what happens is the energies are kind of turning around like a screw, putting even though it's a yod, there's that spiral feeling to it. And I'm just gonna invoke a space of sacred discharge imbued by the violet flame here to lighten the energies a little bit, because not everybody's going to experience it very intensely. It's going to depend on where you are in your spiritual journey. And here's the interesting thing. I have a friend who's been looking at the consciousness scale, and she's working on tool sets for it. And maybe one day when she's got them nailed exactly where she wants them, maybe I'll be able to share them with you guys, or make an just like talk about her work on the channel. But one of the interesting things that she has been confirming for me, and her name is Diva. And one of the things that Diva has been confirming for me is an observation that I've had, that I've talked about on my channel many times, which is that the darkness and the light can both serve divinity. Okay, so it depends on your orientation as a soul. But one of the things that she's doing is confirming that for me in her data. That's my experience of seeing, what she's doing. So that if someone appears to be acting in dissonance to what you feel is what God would want through you in the situation, that doesn't mean that that's not exactly, perfectly, completely 100% fulfilling God's mission through them, no matter what they are doing. And this is where alleviating ourselves from judgment can be extremely, extremely beneficial. Now let's take a look at the meaning of some of these symbols. And the one other thing that I want to add here is not only is there a yod pointing at the moon in the midheaven, but there's a grand trine with the part of fortune in Sagittarius and Mars and Eris. Okay, primarily Mars, but Eris is within 3 to 4 degrees. Now this is some big rowdy energy here that is adding to this Neptune, Saturn, Pluto in quincunx in opposition to the moon in the midheaven. I mean, this is some rowdy, hella rowdy energy. Because when you get Mars and Eris together, watch out. Eris, I dearly love and honor this energy of Eris. Eris is, if there is discord to bring, she will bring it. She knows exactly what to say, what energy to throw into the mix to just completely get everyone fighting. And I'm laughing while I say that, but here's the thing. The reason that Eris does that is when she notes something that is not in alignment with divinity. This is her mechanism. The fighting, the dissonance, the discord creates an apparent disharmony. But from within that disharmony, from within the cacophony and the chaos, we have the opportunity to center ourselves within in the divinity that we are. And truly, it's the only way to find our center in that level of discord and chaos. Somewhat like our Western societies are experiencing right now, and really societies around the globe. So when she's with her brother Mars, there is a power to this energy, and they're in their home sign of Aries. They're in, Aries is ruled by Mars. I mean, you got Mars in Aries, and you've got Neptune in Pisces. I mean, this is very, very, very powerful. Okay. All right. So there is another grand trine here with the sun, with Hygeia and the ascendant, with Vesta. And I have talked about this in my last 2 astrology videos, so I'm not going to go into it. The only thing I want to mention is somehow the data stopped when Hygeia, health and wellness, which is up for everyone around the world right now, when health and wellness was at 3 degrees and 33 minutes. I mean, wow. That's a pretty perfect number there. Whew, do you feel the shaking right there? And look at this. I just want to show you guys this. I'm going to use, I hope that this will work. Yeah, well, okay. I'm going to use my marker here, and I'm going to show you that there is a 6-pointed star in this chart with these 2 grand trines. It's pretty phenomenal. So it's a pretty interesting coincidence that this data stopped like right here. And I hope that we get to find out what was happening on the chart, but we may not. So let me just also, so now that I've got that in there, I'm also going to put in the yod. Here's the yod right here. And here's the opposition. I mean, wow. And look at this. The yod and the opposition are at the point, the highest point in the chart. Is also the point of one of the points on the 6-sided star, which includes every point in both grand trines. Oh my goodness. Are you like shaking with this energy? Because that's how I feel inside. I just feel like, whoa. And it's really interesting because the only big hitter that's left out here apparently is Jupiter right here, and I will address that in a second, okay? And actually, it shouldn't be red; it should be blue because it's beneficial here. But you see how one of the grand trines is in these lower numbers. See, here's Jupiter's at 7, and then Hygeia is at 3, Vesta's at 6, and The sun's at 11. And then the other grand trine is in the higher numbers, right? 28 degrees to 24, 25. So you really have, you've got 6 signs. Actually, you've got 6 plus 3. You've got 9 signs involved here. So phenomenal, right? And plus, I'm going to tie in Aries. And the reason why is because this is in... well, actually, maybe I should have made it red. It's in semi-sextile to the bottom point here, which is a shadow. It can be beneficial. It can be something we just don't see, okay? And it's in square to the sun, which I didn't talk about at the new moon, but everybody else was talking about it, but I might talk about it here in a minute. Okay, so essentially, wow. I mean, this is just such perfection that you just got to wonder, don't you? You just got to wonder about this data stopping here. It's just so phenomenal. And that's why I put the seraphim here. This is a seraphim angel with 6 wings. And she's depicted slightly differently than the Bible talks about, because in the Bible, the seraphim covers its face with the wings. So is it its face that it covers, or its body, and then just its face shows? I think that's what it is. But I just, because of the divinity that's so incredibly potent in this reading at the time the data stopped, but seems so up in this moment, I just felt like putting a major symbol of divinity would be super cool in the thumbnail. So let's look at these energies. Now, it's really interesting because some of these energies seem to speak to the political situation going on, and it's also really interesting because incredibly, some of the major political figures around the world in key positions have these stars that are conjunct, for the most part, conjunct the moon, either the moon or the midheaven, or the midheaven through the moon conjunction. But the world leaders, they have these stars prevalent, and it's really interesting. I'm going to go through those right in a second. The moon stars, it is the closest to Al-Jabhad, the forehead of the lion in the constellation of Leo. And Leo is very associated with royal events and major events and shifts involving kings, queens, heads of state, and major shifts within the domains of countries, localities, major shifts in currencies, major shifts in great religious institutions, and so on and so forth. Now, the moon at Al-Jabhad. Jabhad it has the nature of Saturn and Mercury in the negative. Okay, and it's in opposition to Saturn retrograde. So there's a real suggestion. Number one, there's a warning with these energies to be careful. And the resolution to that is Saturn retrograde, opposing the moon at the moment, to review where the people, the activities you're involved in, where do they have these potentials? And those are involving liars, thieves, scandals, slander, loss, danger, intemperate natures, and danger related to officers in the military, to leaders who are military leaders. So this is just pretty amazing. So I'm just going to invoke the violet flame over this and ask for a blessing from the divine over all of us in these energies. This star rules slightly below the top of the kidneys. Isn't that where the adrenaline is? So I'm wondering if fear is involved here, and essentially the misuse of fear to achieve very specific service to self outcomes. So what's up here is to be careful. What's up here is to align with divinity as best you can through you. And the reason why is because that divinity is what protects us. Divinity is what whispers over our shoulders, this situation just isn't right. Or, hey, be careful here, or talk to this person instead of that person, these sort of things. And we have divine protection. And I have had, I've had numerous people in my conversations, because obviously I talk a lot with people about spiritual matters, but in conversations, I've had numerous people tell me about absolute miracles that have happened to them. And in every case, they attributed the miracle to the protection of the divine. And in my life as well, when I've had these miracles, I know in that moment, it's, all glory to God. It is the divine that comes through and creates something that is perhaps beyond our ability to imagine until we are smack dab in the middle. It's occurring, and then there it is, the miracle. The miracle is ours. Through grace, right? Through divine grace, which blesses us if we choose to receive it. Woo! This is so cool. This is some intense energy at the top of this Yod opposition star in Grand Trine. Wow. Oh my goodness. All right, now let's see what's next, because this is amazing. So the next star is Regulus. It has the nature of Mars and Jupiter. This is a royal star. It represents Archangel Raphael, who's the archangel of healing. It brings with us, it brings just an incredible, high and lofty ideals, strength of spirit, magnanimous energy, generous, ambitious, commanding military success, but also can have some violence and destructiveness with it. But very noble and royal properties, courageous. And it's just incredible. Those born under it have a royal-like nativity. It's really incredible. Now, I want to share with you and this star information is from Astrology King. I want to share with you the major figures that have this star and Aljabhab prominent. Okay, so are you ready? This is incredible. So related to Regulus, George H.W. Bush, Donald Trump, they have it. They had it on their ascendant. Let's see here. Margaret Thatcher had this. Benjamin Disraeli, very interesting. Wow, there's sure a lot of sirens blowing in the background while I'm looking at everybody born under Regulus. Princess Diana had it. Donald Trump has it again, conjunct another planet, conjunct Mars. Bill Gates has it conjunct his Jupiter. Now, this is interesting. Zelensky has it conjunct his Saturn, which means Saturn is Saturn. He's having a Saturn opposition right now. That's really interesting. Emmanuel Macron has it. Actually, he might not, because it may have moved. It's probably moved. So at any rate, I'm not sure. It might be in wide opposition at this point. Emmanuel Macron has it conjunct Saturn. Isn't that interesting? Wow, Johnny Depp had it in a wide conjunction with Uranus, has it. Che Guevara had it conjunct Neptune. Bill Gates has it conjunct Pluto. Joe Biden has it conjunct his North Node. And Barack Obama has it conjunct his North Node. And so did Princess Diana. And interestingly, Harvey Weinstein had it conjunct South Node. Wow, this is so fascinating. Now just hold on a sec. I want to read to you those who have this. Maybe I should go check Twitter and see what's going on in my area. Not that I'd be able to find it anymore on Twitter, unfortunately. Okay. All right, so let's see who had this. Al-Jabhab, who had it prominent in their chart. I'm just going to focus on the politicians here and the current politicians. Bill Clinton has his son. Now, this is his birth son, okay, not the current placement. The sun conjunct Al-Jabhab. Donald Trump has Mars conjunct it. Bill Gates has Jupiter conjunct it. Zelensky has Saturn conjunct it. This is in their natal charts. And I'm just focusing on current people. Bill Gates has Pluto conjunct this star. Barack Obama has the North Node conjunct this star. And I'm just going to mention Princess Diana because I loved following her when she was alive. Okay, wow. Now, you know what? It was so interesting. I'm just gonna say this. When I was studying the list of current politicians who have a major influence in major countries around the world at this moment, and I don't know if we have the data for, the head of Russia or China. Okay, I don't know if that's available. I just don't have the knowledge of that. So in the Western world, at least, I was just amazed at how relevant this is for key leaders in the Western world. It just amazes me. And so, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen on the Schumann. I don't know if we're going to get the data, but I wonder if it says something about the Western world. And, it's interesting because the birth of the United States of America is tomorrow. And it's tomorrow. And so it'll be interesting to see what happens. Now, here's something else that's really interesting that's happening tomorrow. Okay, and I got this from Krazi, astrologer. She is absolutely amazing. She's often on Astrology, but she has her own channel, and it's Krasi. But she has several videos on this that Aldebaran, which was prominent at the new moon, is rising tomorrow. And what she said was that this is why the founders of the United States of America, this is one of the key reasons why the birthday of the United States of America, the birth date, is July 4th. Isn't this amazing? It's interesting, in ancient times, Aldebaran and the other royal stars marked the solstice for Aldebaran, and some of the other, the equinoxes and solstices and this sort of thing. So I may do a chart tomorrow. I guess I'll see how this goes with this video and how long everything takes me to edit. But I'm looking forward to seeing what the chart is for the birthday of the United States of America. But this symbol is coming, this incredible set of energies has come just before the birthday, and the birthday in a natal chart, like the transits for the year, they give you a feel of what the coming year may be like. So I'm looking forward to checking that out. There's one other thing I want to say about the energy of these stars, but especially Al-Jabhab, because that star is, I think, within 15-ish minutes of the moon. And that is, with this intense of a structure, okay? See, I look at this and I say, how can I use these energies to improve my life? And the reason why is I've just found that I'd rather flow with it than try to fight against it. That's where I've gotten to in life. That once you start going down the path of spiritual journey, and you start to, have an eye towards the rewards of that, which are usually internal, not so much external. So, what can you do? It's an inside job, So, but at any rate, you can make incredible progress as a soul with these kinds of structures at play. And you can look at this energy and say, what is the meaning for me for this now, in the now moment? And even though the moon is very transitory, right? It moves pretty fast. I think that you can look at this moment and muse on the energies and what it might mean. And we can muse on whatever might have showed, right, on the chart at this time. We just don't know. I want to interpret the Sabian symbols for the key. The moon is at a beautiful symbol. The Sabian is Leo 29, which is a mermaid emerges from the ocean waves, ready for rebirth in human form. That's Rudyard's interpretation. Linda Hill's interpretation is a mermaid has climbed to the rocky shore of a bleak coast and she awaits a prince. It's really interesting here because the mermaid waiting to either merge with her lover or become, transmute into the human. Isn't it about something incredibly beautiful, mystical, and really from our collective subconscious, then becoming created, this urge to bring this into human form, to have the experience in the physical world. And what Rudyard says here is love seeks tangible manifestation. And I think that is so beautiful, such a beautiful description of this energy. But the key here, as Linda Hill points out, is becoming self-reliant in these energies is extraordinarily important. And why is that? Because your subconscious and divine creativity for you, through you, comes through that very personal communion with the divine for you in your life. And that depends on bringing a groundedness to your own intuition, to bring it into physical form. There's a desire here to bring meaning into life, whether that's through love or some other physical creation. It's a very, very beautiful energy. But remember that the moon is conjunct Al-Jabbar. And because of that, one must, my suggestion is to rely on I don't want to say must, okay? Because even in making mistakes, we bring divinity to that and darkness is turned to light. And sometimes a mistake or a seeming step in the wrong direction actually leads us to where we ultimately want to go. Everything's in perfection. But what we can do is stay focused on our own creation. Watch for illusion. Watch for the negatives of Pluto, Saturn, Neptune. What would that be? Illusion, delusion, being sort of pushed into something where you think you don't want to go, Saturn compressing, being tempted to go in directions that aren't good for you, Pluto, the negative of Pluto. So watch out. Watch out in these energies. And in fact, here's the thing, okay? These give us the greatest opportunity to test ourselves and our connection with the divine. It's really an amazing and extraordinary potential experience. It's an amazing opportunity. All this stuff over here on this side of the top point of the six-pointed star and the midheaven of this chart, all of this testing, and even Jupiter, right, which is square the moon and can lead us to overexpand ourselves. All of this tests us mightily in this moment. And who's at the opposite end of that? Regulus, right here. The Archangel Raphael, the Archangel of healing. And what does healing do? How does healing come about? When divinity expands within, we are returned to wholeness. We are returned to our divine blueprint. We are returned to our perfect health in perfection in the human physical form during our lifetime, right? That's the miracle of connecting with God in the moment, in your living life. Wow, I just had this insight, like that this whole thing is this incredible test, right? To reveal to yourself where you are at in relationship within to divinity as that expresses for you, and what are your feelings about that as an individual, right? The moon in Leo. Gee, that's just so beautiful. Let's just wrap up a couple of things here because I want to address the squares to Hygeia. I did talk about them in the video of the new moon, so I won't go into it too much, but you've got these intense squares here. See here even from, well, this is a wide square, Eris and Mars to Pluto in a wide square with Hygeia, okay? But you've also got Metis, wise counselor. So you've got questionable health decisions here that have to be reviewed. And those, Hygeia at 333 is in square to Varuna, which is at 520, which adds up to a 7. So that's a spiritual number. But Hygeia is in square to the god of justice. Okay, so that implies trouble in paradise, right? Trouble with health that requires justice, and we don't feel good about it. We don't feel good about it. We don't like it. We don't necessarily want to even hear about it in some cases. But the only way to resolve this is to accept and love what Varuna has to bring to us related to information about health that leads to justice prevailing. In whatever way the divine unfoldment of that is. You know, it's interesting here because Jupiter in square to the sun, I want to just look for a moment at what the sun meant at the new moon, because Jupiter was in a perfect square. The sun was at 7 and Jupiter's at 7. The energy of the sun at the new moon was about people dressed as rabbits on parade. And I just thought that it was interesting to have that energy in everything that the new moon was about, with all of these energies that I discussed in the new moon video, and then Jupiter squaring it. It's almost like Jupiter is attempting to break apart that energy of parading in costumes because it has gotten too far from expression in perfection of the divinity of whatever that truly is. You know, it's been pulled too far out. And in becoming pulled too far out, it contributes to the story of Sedna and to the tragedy and the traumas that children experience when that happens, when energies are not applied appropriately either in the home or other circumstances. So I thought that was really interesting. And Jupiter is still in square to that. You know, in Christian prayer work, and I have a friend who does Christian prayer work, a member of my family, and she talks about breaking things off, right? Breaking things off of a person. And what she's really talking about there is disconnecting energy cords or clearing the energy field. It's so interesting to talk with her because she'll tell me the Christian descriptions, and I will explain the energy, and then we go back and forth, learning from each other. And it's so cool because the work that I do is so aligned with the work that she does. It's just that we use different, terminology, but it's just so aligned. So I'm really in gratitude about that, and so amazed that is the case. So I feel like there's an attempt to break off from, what is in the home, the energy of this parading around in costume, because it has, and specifically the rabbit costume, which has specific meaning I'm not going to go into here. But, if you look that up, it's a rabbit hole of unhappiness and trauma. Now, let's talk about the potential influence on the world stage here. It's so fascinating because the sun at 11 Cancer, where it is in this six-pointed star, it reveals the energy of Cancer 12 in the Sabian symbols. A Chinese woman nursing a baby whose aura reveals him to be the reincarnation of a great teacher. And it's interesting because the one doing the nurturing here is the Chinese woman. We don't know the nationality or identity of the baby. We just know that the baby is the reincarnation of a great teacher. And one can see this on an individual level as the nurturing of the self to embody the soul. On an individual level, that would be the meaning of this. Now, it also indicates, people of incredible talent taking the stage, someone of incredible talent taking the world stage, right? Being on the world stage. And what it says in these energies is that it appears to say that China is supporting this happening from behind the scenes. So, because the woman nursing the baby is usually behind the scenes, right? We don't know if the woman doing the nursing is the mother. We just know that she is facilitating something precious being nurtured to fully embody his true divinity or her true divinity. Now, it's so fascinating here because when Rudyard interpreted this symbol, he talked about, we don't know if the person was actually Chinese. Maybe the clairvoyant saw an Asian person, but it could have been Tibetan, could have been something else, could have been about the Dalai Lama. And the fact is to me, this shows the unfolding imperfection of divine timing, because in the about the 1930s, 1920s, 30s, 40s, whenever these symbols were downloaded and then interpreted, nobody had any idea about the political situation today. And the interpretation that the person doing the nurturing was Chinese is imperfection. It's so incredible because China is a major force on the world stage now. And so I feel that this is so apt that the symbol is about a Chinese woman. The last thing I want to do here is interpret Hygeia, because at 333, that's pretty amazing. And it is 4 degrees from the ascendant in Scorpio. So that implies that there are some secrets to reveal here. Let's see what they might be. Hygeia at 4 Scorpio interpretation is a youth carries a lighted candle in a devotional ritual. It talks about the power of ceremonies that represent culture. It talks about communities of human beings that come together and express themselves through culture, through the structure of rituals and symbols that say something, that talk about the meaning they express and the value that they put on life, and that comprise an illustration, a living example of their way of life. And it's so interesting because Rudyard talks about youth in relationship to these symbols. And what he says about youth is that they take the values for granted until the day when they choose to assert their individuality and then scorn traditional rituals. So this has been the case in Western culture over many, many decades now. And now we have come to see that scorning our traditional rituals leaves us with nothing. It leaves us with a culture that represents no one, that represents a absence of the divine, that gives no founding and no basis for people to live together in harmony or peace. There have to be values that are represented through our cultural rituals and traditions, both as a human race and within the honoring of the various cultures of the earth. And in the Western civilization now, we've seen what the stretching of these rituals until they break has done. And really, we've seen it around the world, because the other major players besides the United States of America, Russia, and China have already gone through this. You know, Russia went through it when they became the USSR and shifted to communism. And look what's happened. They've reclaimed their traditional values and now express them in new ways. And look what's happened to China with communism taking over. They removed all traditional expressions, right, from their culture. And it leads to, whatever that leads to. I'm sure that everyone might have varying opinions on that now because it's very up in the news, right? The influences of these sorts of things on our culture in general. And so there might be a bubbling up there now and a shift that these energies are indicating, because maybe what we have found is that the culture and rituals of our tradition, the honoring of our human expressions as living embodied souls, maybe what we have found is that this is the key to our health as a society. A great secret has been revealed to us all, perhaps around the globe, that the honoring of our cultural differences and our cultural traditions and the respect of these, and somehow bringing them forward with us, Saturn in opposition to the midheaven, bringing them forward with us somehow in a way that honors them, perhaps that this is critical to the health of our human expression as individuals, that we need this in our lives. As much as we need God in our lives, we need our ability to express that divinity through us in the physical world. The mermaid comes out from the sea, wishing for expression in the physical world.